to make it more well, right? This was majorly about the India-Malaysia issue, and for that matter, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, who visited India in the previous week, which was a milestone achieved. For that matter, moving on to the next topic herein, which is on the ethanol blending program. So we all know that India currently has been able to achieve some 13 to 15% blending in the traditional fossil fuel. In the process, the idea is to first reduce dependency on import, and the second idea is to, of course, cut down its greenhouse gas emissions, right? So reading on the important aspects of this article, which it says that India is on its way to achieve its target of blending 20% of petrol with ethanol by 2025-2026. The idea actually was by the National Policy of Biofuels, which did take place in the year 2018. The idea was to achieve this particular target by 2030, right? However, because Niti Aayog suggested a different report, in which it was so suggested that roadmap for ethanol blending in India by 2025 and 2026. So the idea is now to achieve this particular target by 2025, right? Going by then the next particular important part of the article is, however, the food versus fuel equation continues to hang over ethanol economy, as recent events have shown. The idea is, from where are we going to manufacture ethanol? So the wonderful area from which we can extract ethanol is, one is sugarcane and the other are various food grains. Yes. So in this process, what happens is we are making a compromise with the food security. So this is where the policy had to change, and let's see what this particular article so talks us about. Okay, for that matter, maize import has increased. Why? Because sugarcane was not allowed to be procured for ethanol production. In that particular process, the maize was allowed, and for this reason, despite India having a self-sufficiency in maize, but it had to still import maize. Apparently, let us go further into the article. Maize has been used to produce more fuel ethanol to compensate the restrictions on using sugarcane products, right? The next part is, all the emphasis has been on the first generation ethanol, that is directly made from fruit grains and sugarcane. The government should diversify and move to 2G and 3G that are more benign in terms of impact on food security. Apparently, the national policy on biofuels, it so categorizes biofuels under 4 groups, right? One is the first generation, second generation, third generation, and the fourth generation, right? So these can definitely take care, or for that matter, be taken care as suggestions that we can try and implement, such that this idea of ethanol production does not go wrong. Yes. So it so says that the first generation have been taken care of hugely, but the diversification should happen to 2G and 3G also. 3G uses basically your algae to produce ethanol, which is thereby better process, and we also do not need any kind of food grains herein. Okay. The next important part of the article so says that 20% by 2025 would mean producing some 1,000 crore liters of ethanol for blending with petrol. The next important part says the roadmap for achieving ethanol blending targets prepared by the Niti Aayog had laid down the capacity of sugarcane-based distilleries would need to increase from 226 crore liters in 2021 to 760 crore liters in 2026. So apparently, we also understand that there is an issue with the infrastructure, right, and also with the supply chain possibility. For that matter, the next part says, while grain-based distilleries capacity should increase from 258 to 40 crore liters. So in both the ways, either be it grain-based distilleries or either it be your sugarcane-based distilleries, we are in any particular way lacking in the infrastructure, and we would need more distilleries. For that matter, we would have to take care of more capacity, right, for our targets to be matched. Now, this part of the story tells us, taking stock in December, when the government said India's ethanol production capacity had already increased to 1380 crore liters, some 875 crore from sugarcane and 505 crore from food grains, right? Then you have the next important part. So says that sugarcane gives three main parts, related products: sugarcane juice, heavy molasses, and then C grade heavy molasses. So the article so tells that the sugarcane juice and syrup and B heavy molasses, these have higher sugar content, because of which these are used to produce sugar. So the molasses were majorly diverted for making of the sugarcane, right? Because of something happened between, for which the first two categories were not allowed for ethanol production, because of which the concentration, or for that matter the idea to produce ethanol from the grains became much more prevalent. Okay, for that matter, this part of the story tells us exactly what I said just now. Come down to this part, it so says India ranks as the major maize producer globally, but domestic consumption consistently outpaces production. This is the reason why we are struggling. For that matter, this is also an interesting fact. At 3 to 4 tons per hectare, India's maize yield is much lower than other countries. So this is a fact which can also become a prelims question. For that matter, is an important part, and where we should take care of our policy. So the next part, it so says, as per Niti Aayog's estimate, some 4.8 billion hectares will have to be added to maize production area to meet the 20% target. So this also takes care of, or talks about how much cultivation should we increase and how much should we not. This part of the story tells us about the efficiency in automobiles. Now, the Niti Aayog report notes that ethanol brought down the fuel efficiency in vehicles not suited for ethanol by an average of 6%. This is also a major issue with the ethanol production in the country. For that matter, we have already discussed, we know until when should the E20 fuel, which we normally call it, right, which we normally call it the E20 fuel, that is ethanol, and then 20%, yes, and the rest 80% goes for your traditional gasoline based fossil fuel, right? Now the challenges which we could come across from this particular article, it so says that the availability of feedstock, the infrastructure, and also, of course, trying to modify the petrol engines to use the E20 fuel. So this majorly sums up the situation in which we are in. For that matter, there are countries for that matter there are countries such for the likes of Brazil and other countries who have achieved E85, yes, E85 fuel. So for that matter, we need to take suggestions from these countries, and for that matter try and learn, such that in the process we can also far better in this process and contribute our ways to mitigating the climate change, right? Apparently, the next topic for the day, it talks about Europe's push, India's agency, why Modi's visit to Kyiv is significant. For that matter, here only taking care of the important parts of the article, it so reads, Modi will be the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Ukraine after diplomatic relations were established in the year 1992. The next important part says this certainly is not a continuation of India's traditional foreign policy stance. Then we come down to during the Cold War, when Poland was a Warsaw Pact member, only 3 prime ministers visited: Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and then we have Morarji Desai. But after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact and the Poland moving away from post-Soviet Russia and closer to the West, India did not had much time for the country. For that matter, India's bias towards Russia in retrospect likely prevented New Delhi from going full steam on its engagement with Central and Eastern European countries, of which Ukraine and Poland are parts. For that matter, the next important part of the article tells us bilateral relations took a hit after Ukraine and Russia war began in 2022. The volume of India-Ukraine trade dropped from $3.39 billion in 2021 to $0.78 billion and now to $0.71 billion in 2023 and 2024. So the major dealing for us is with the kinds of fertilizers and the sunflower oil. For that matter, the next important part of the article talks about the possibility of post-war reconstruction in Ukraine offers various opportunities for India. More immediately, there is room for defense industrial cooperation. Now, it also says that Ukraine's strength as one of the world's agrarian powers will add to its strategic salience in the years ahead, and pre-war, Ukraine was one of the biggest sources of sunflower oil for India. So this is how we know how is Ukraine important for us. For that matter, there was a question asked to the interviewee. It was asked that could Modi's visit to Ukraine impact India's relations with India? So this particular idea now comes down to the fact of dehyphenation, right, which we have recently seen about India's stance when we took care of Palestine and Israel. Apparently, India-Russia relations are in no way linked to India's engagement with Ukraine. For that matter, India is a confident, powerful nation and significant capacity to act on its own in the international sphere. For that matter, India has been key in keeping Russia's economy afloat by helping it bypass Western sanctions, and India continues to use Russian military hardware in addition to cooperating on a range of other issues, right? So just for that matter, we can come in here. It so says that, however, all this does not stop Russia from engaging with China, which is India's biggest geopolitical rival. So similarly, when Russia and China are engaging, so India and Ukraine are also engaging, and for that matter, India and Russia's relation does not need to sever. So the idea in international politics is common interest, and this is the major driving force, as particularly the writer wants to comment. The most interesting part of the article talks about for decades India's policy was to maintain equal distance from all countries. Today India's policy is to maintain close ties with all countries. And in this particular light, what can be talked about is India's consideration to become a Vishwa Guru and India's consideration to become a Vishwa Bandhu. Yes, so all of these particulars do come down to the aspects of India's IR policy right now. So this was majorly about why is Poland important, why is Kyiv important, and how is India trying to dehyphenate its policies for any other country through the lenses of any other country. And just like this particular part of the article said, that India will now try and get closer with all other countries, try and become Vishwa Bandhu, apparently trying to dissociate itself from its previous policy to maintain equal distance from all countries. Now it wants to actively engage with the matters and for that matter for the betterment of the people of India throughout the globe, right? So this was the major discussion about India, Poland, and for that matter Kyiv or Ukraine. Yes, the last particular thing talks to us about SOSA, which means a non-binding security supply arrangement, which was recently signed between India and the US, right? Now, this particular deal becomes very important. Why? Because SOSA will mandate the US and India to provide reciprocal priority support for goods and services that promote national defense. So, in the slide, India has recently engaged with United Nations in a series of discussions. For that matter, the 4 foundational defense agreements between India and for that matter US The very first is BECA, Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Intelligence. Then the second one is called GSOMIA. So this is called General Security of Military Information Agreement. The third one is LEMOA, it's Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. And the very last is the COMCASA, which extrapolates to Communication Compatibility and Security Agreement, right? For that matter, in the previous year, India also signed Indus X deal with US, which is called India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, which would foster joint innovation on defense technologies and integrate India's private sector defense industry with the US defense industry. For that matter, India is being helped by the US to kind of build jet engine technology, right? So there are semiconductor supply chains in which India and US have recently engaged in the adoption of a defense industrial cooperation roadmap, which apparently this article also talks about the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative here, and there was another place, yes, India-US Defense Industrial Cooperation Roadmap. So the only issue where the experts talk about SOSA is that this is a non-binding thing. So therefore, when it goes down to the second particular level of this particular agreement, that is when it becomes a binding arrangement, and that is when it shall be benefiting India through all its heart and mind. For that matter, here is a prelims part. It says India is the 18th SOSA partner of the US, and there are some 17 other countries who already have had this particular agreement signed. So this was majorly about the defense supply pact, which the defense minister of India did secure for India in this particular for that matter in the previous week. And this was majorly about the previous week. We have definitely seen some of the brilliant diplomatic achievements which have taken place, and hope certain wonderful achievements do come to us at quite some intervals. Having said that, wishing you very best for the next week, and we shall be meeting again.